is up, guys? It's Dave.
Please tell me the first bit didn't make it to the edit.
Well, we shall see.
Oh dear.
Dave, Duncan, and Kyle back from Metal Epidemic, back for another album review. For this review, Duncan, Kyle, and I have been checking out the new album from UK sludge metal trio, Row of Ashes. The band's new album, Bleaching Heat, will be released on May 6th via Surviving Sounds. So, this is album number 2 from Row of Ashes, which follows up their 2020 album, Unbeliever. The album was recorded and engineered by Joe Garcia at Joe's Garage in Bristol, and then mixed and mastered by Rob Hobson. Okay, gentlemen, Row of Ashes. So there are some genres that will instantly make you feel happy inside. You know, just make you smile from ear to ear.
Black metal, yeah.
Well,
makes you happy. You know what I mean?
Southern metal for me is just
love that we just have that on tap whenever we want.
That is a style that just kind of sends me in my happy place.
Yes, grooves. I like grooves, just good. In general. If you don't smile when any band is playing, if you are into metal or rock and you don't smile when you hear a groove riff, then you're listening to the wrong genre.
Yeah. Other styles can often have the opposite effect. Sometimes music is so bleak and dark that you might need a little lie down and maybe a little Valium, you know, just to reflect.
Pop punk. I'm on point tonight.
No.
Sorry.
Say no to drugs, kids. Say no to drugs. Row of Ashes
is on the first side.
Definitely send me to that dark place, gents.
Speak for yourself. I was smiling from ear to ear listening to this, Dave.
What?
How can you not?
This is I'm smiling in a different way, but this is thick, very corrosive sludge. It has a very dismal kind of outlook. But from the first kind of 30 seconds of this, I kind of knew where this was headed. Definitely evoked. It kind of evoked vibes of bands like Black Sheep Wall or Willhaven. There's an older band. I don't think they're on the go anymore from the UK called Anacondas. There was a little bit of that in there as well, which I was picking up. But every chord has a filthiness, you know, and even in the melodic parts of the guitars, they also do have a bit of an uneasy type feeling to it. But what I loved about this, and it is possible to love this, by the way, just
he's brought back
as memorable as it is. Row of Ashes have this really cool balance between that dissonant, like eerie wall of noise and those huge moments where they just break down into a really kind of monstrous riff. And bands like Black Sheep Wall and Willhaven have that tight balance as well, but I feel like Row of Ashes have probably a bit more experimentation in their riffing. That the riffs feel a bit more kind of flexible, a bit more kind of snake-like. There's a little fleck of like Vision of Disorder in there as well. Who are obviously kind of more hardcore based, but there's a streak of that sound deep in here as well. Could hear it in some of the riffs, especially on the title track, and even vocally that I could hear little similarities between Chris Wilson, the vocalist from Row of Ashes, and Tim Williams from VOD. But along with that like sludgy kind of hardcore vibe that these guys have got, they also sprinkle in a little bit of noise rock in here as well. And you can hear that really come to the fold on the kind of second half of The Wreck in the Mill, where it gets a little bit more experimental in the guitar work. I think my favourite track of the album was a track called The Next Away. It had a little bit more kind of like a smidge of like a kind of screamed melody in the vocal at times. And there's the kind of main riff has got a kind of, it's like an ascending type riff, which really kind of got stuck in my head after I heard it a couple of times. But that thunderous sludge riff at the end of the track just colossal, just huge sounding. And when it ended, I was like, how the fuck are they going to follow that up? But they kind of move into almost like a clean kind of interlude after that track. I think that was a clever move, because I think trying to compete with the end of The Next Away at the start of the next track was almost impossible to do. So I think having that little breather really kind of helped. I think the other thing that's really impressive here is, I mentioned right at the start, this is a 3-piece band. Like they've created a sound that you would usually be accustomed to hearing from a 4 or a 5-piece band easily, but somehow they've not only captured that same kind of weight and size, which a lot of it actually comes from the bass tone. The guitars are heavy, but that bass is there for it thicken things up hugely. But even with one guitar, it's still very interesting to listen to. There's a lot of variation going on with the kind of melodic, kind of eerie lead work, and there's clean parts that are blended into the heavy stuff like they do on the Wreck in the Mill and Contraband as well. Not many bands can pull that off. I think I'd be really interested to see this live. I'm sure it would be heavy as fuck. If bands like Conan or even like a 2-piece like Tuskar can pull it off, then I'm sure these guys will as well. But never heard of these guys before, but this is 30 minutes well worth your time. You'll feel maybe a shell of your former self afterwards, but it's definitely worth it. Maybe for me, not quite on the same level as some of the bands mentioned in the review. I think sometimes the tracks do meander a little bit. And the last track, I thought the last track was okay, but I felt like it was missing just a moment somewhere. But to be honest, I feel like they have even more in the tank. I think there's more to come from these guys. I'm quite excited to hear where they go next. What about you guys? How did you get on? Duncan, what do you think?
I love this. I absolutely love this. We were kind of joking off air that there was a band that we kind of all discovered last year called Bummer, who are from Kansas. And I kind of fell like kind of head over heels in love with that band. Because they were immensely bleak, but sardonically bleak. You know what I mean? There was a lot of that was kind of tongue in cheek. It wasn't deliberately, this is the worst thing ever and strap yourself in. But they had a heaviness, another 3-piece band, which had a heaviness and a weight to them, and just a colossal wall of sound that just kept hitting you. And there was the difference between the two bands would be that the kind of tracks you were talking about, like Machine Statues and stuff, where there's a bit cleaner moments. There isn't that on Bummer. Bummer never really give you that. But if they were looking for a future tour, these are the guys to tour with. And they're not the same sounding band by any stretch of the imagination. Rove Ashes are certainly heavier. A lot of that comes and I don't necessarily think they're playing anything heavier. I just think it's more the weight of the bass actually adds to the heaviness of the tone. I found myself very much like what you were saying, Dave. Within the first 30 seconds, I was like, this is something special. Like I'm now fully prepared to be pummeled to death. And this album pretty much all but did that. Don't let a cat listen to this because it might spend a few lives. We only have 9, Dave. I don't know if you know about that. But the thing was Worcester Man, which is the first chat with finished. I kind of it's like right. I'm in with this one, and then the title track Bleaching Heat comes on, which can I only assume is kind of the sound of what happens, like the internal sound of what happens in Fight Club, where they put that stuff in the guy's hand and then hold it down while it burns through it. Because that, the actual track is kind of what would go in my head. It has it goes in a direction with the riffing. Like you get a level of heaviness and then it drops down to like the heavier riff, and it is. I think it was the first time that I kind of started thinking we should just call this genre stankcore. Because I think this is the common. I think people use the word stank incorrectly. I think people are using it for deathcore bands. Any band that gives you that bow and then they're all like, oh, this. That's not stank to me is the most disgustingly bleak sound you can hear. While those bands do it, it's a little bit too polished for me. While this band give you it, it is a rawness that is just as instantly unpleasant. But it's like stopping the car to watch two animals fuck. Like, you know you shouldn't, but you can't take your eyes off it, right? It's like, it's not nice, but why am I still here? And why is the guy behind me beeping his horn?
That's me.
I mean, well, that was Dave.
Fucking move.
Come on, let's go. Let's move this review on, Duncan. But it's something like deeply unpleasant, but you can't stop listening to it. You like kind of have to, like, you're eager to find out where it goes next, and it never really disappointed for me at all as it continued through. And they just seem to be able to find. I don't necessarily think any of the tracks are necessarily all that much heavier than the other ones, but I think what they do really well is building up a certain level of one thing. So when they drop to that kind of core heaviness, it sounds heavier than the bit before, so in effect is heavier. And because the album utilizes that technique a lot, to me, by the time we got into tracks like Contraband or like the very funny tongue-in-cheek In Summation, which is the final track, it's a summation. By the time we get to that, I was kind of like, this is just progressively getting heavier. It isn't actually, though. When you listen to it, like, and if you listen to the tracks individually out with the context of the album, they're not. They're utilizing similar techniques in all of them. I think you touched on something that is, once again, a really good point for this one, and something that is very easy to miss, and that's specifically song placement. Track 6 is like, you're right, the Next Away kicks in. By the time you get to the end of that track, you are physically fucking exhausted. To just jump back into another track would be silly, because you lose the effect of that on the listen. You've got this massive payoff, but then instantly resetting it, and that's not a good idea. So Machine Statues, what it does is it kind of, it lulls you back in and brings you along steadily without breaking the album. And then takes you straight into Contraband, which then pushes you back out again. So I think there's a lot of clever songwriting. There's a lot of great playing here. It would not surprise me if, what was it, Joe's Garage or whatever it was, is actually just a garage, because I mean, it is that dank sounding. And I just couldn't love it anymore because of that. I think it is, and we mention it all the time, there are ways to achieve heaviness which don't involve huge amounts of studio fuckery and 17 guitars recorded. Like, there are ways to do it. I like to think this is the Conan effect. I think the Conan and the band have been trend-setting now for over a decade, showing other bands out there that you can create huge walls of noise from a three-piece, and we're starting to see that, specifically in the UK. We're starting to see a lot of bands that are just kind of taking that mantle and running with it. I thought Row of Ashes delivered on this one. I think Bleaching Heat is an incredibly scathing, scorching sounding album, which, when you think of scathing and scorching, you think warm colours, but it's about as grey and black as it gets. And I loved it for that. I don't have the same issues that you have with the closing track. I will grant that it's not got necessarily a kind of central hooking point to bring it back in, but I kind of like the idea that it just kept building different components on in a track, which by its name is supposed to bring finality. It actually, weirdly in reverse, made me want to hear more. So this is fucking awesome. I loved it.
Nice. Kyle, back in action.
Bass.
Yeah, I'm back. Welcome back to me.
Yeah. Is case? Did you have the case of the bass face on this album, Kyle?
Case of the bass face.
Bass face is basically like your cum face, but when you hear a filthy bass tone.
Right.
Yeah. Except this one is more enjoyable.
Oh dear.
Burn.
Yikes.
But the first note I wrote down is in big capital letters, "That bass, oh my god."
was that stank it made you Jamaican,
Yeah.
apparently.
Did it? Okay, I didn't know that.
That bass, man. Out of nowhere.
That was not the intention, but all right. I'm now part Jamaican. Thank you, Jamaica.
Yes, man. I want the rest of your review in Jamaican, Kyle.
No, I really don't. I really don't.
Let's get cancelled. Let's do it.
There are easier ways to get cancelled for all of us that don't involve listening to Kyle's Jamaican accent, which you only found out 3 seconds ago that he can actually do. So
Completely by accident. Talking about an album, aren't we?
yes,
Yes, we are. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else I can add apart from that fucking bass, because holy shit. It just, half the sound is bass. Like, literally half of the tone from the guitars and everything is bass. And I'm like, yeah, that's all I need in an album. You just give me half an album of bass and I'm sold. Especially when it's as fucking filthy as this. And just makes the pit of your stomach fall out of your asshole.
that's why I imagine Patrick Bateman was listening to that GIF where he's like,
Yeah,
anyway, does the
definitely.
bass. It's not Huey Lewis in the news. It's the bass sound from Rover.
That's just it. Yeah, that's it.
Just the bass. Yeah.
Just the bass.
Only the bass. If I could have this album again as just bass, I would happily listen to it.
Just like if the band are listening, if you have just the bass, or like isolated bass from the master, just send it to Kyle. Look at his wee face. Do you want to make him upset?
Take
all
it
this,
out.
all this kid wants for Christmas is that bass, man.
Oh, it's great. It made me instantly happy when it just slammed in and was. The thing is, it's not just the tone that is massive; it's the playing too. It's just such great playing, and it's the singer that's doing it, which is even better. Like, how do you play like that and sing at the same time? I can play like that and sit down at the same time. Like,
Humble brag.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Like, come on, you're the production guy. So
I was about
out
to
with,
move on
out
to
with
that,
the
yeah.
bass.
out with the bass, the production on this is nigh on perfect. Like, it sounds exactly as this band should. I'm not sure who did it. I did read and I've forgotten.
Joe's Garage.
Oh, it's Joe's
Garage.
Garage, but he recorded it. But
Was it Joe? Is it Joe's
No.
Garage?
It was recorded at Joe's Garage, but it was
Alright.
mixed and mastered by Rob Hobson.
Rob, that was it. I was going to say Bob. Wrong word.
Bob
Wrong name.
Hoskins? What?
Bob Hoskins. I'd love to hear an album mastered by him.
I really wouldn't.
Great. So this album has a real mustache quality. Anyway, I can't remember what the hell I was saying about this album. It's just great from beginning to end. The production is just 10 out of 10. It just sounds exactly how this band should sound. When it gets heavy, it's fucking disgustingly heavy. And when it's clean and airy, it's clean and airy too. They know how to pull them both off and has produced well enough to bring both of those, even though we don't hear the lighter side so much. But I mean, the placement of those lighter bits were absolutely perfect. This album is only 30 minutes long, but it does not feel like it's that. It doesn't feel long. You know, you can listen to it over and over again really easily.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that short. It doesn't feel like it drags on, and it doesn't feel like, you know, you just sat there going, "Is it? What?" Even though in summation, the last part of it is like, "Woo."
Yeah, actually, you're right.
Yeah.
Actually, because even though this is like ridiculously stank and filthy and all that, I didn't have an issue banging it on a second time after it finished. Like, I wasn't overwhelmed by it at all.
I think in part that's the beauty of the final track. Like, you know what I mean? There's a weird thing about I like I say, I totally agree. I don't necessarily think In Summation necessarily delivers a lot of the fine-tuned craft work that you get on the rest of the album, but there's a Moorish quality by the end of it, which you shouldn't get from a 6-minute track of what they do. If anything, you should be like, "Oh, put it to bed, right? Let's you know, done and done." Stick a fork in me, Dave. But you know what I mean? It's not like that. For some reason, there's something about that track that when it finishes, I'm eager to just loop it right back in or just continue on. Like, if they had another song after that, not because I'm having to review it, but if they had another song after that as a bonus track, I would have jumped right into it without being like, "Oh, bonus track." which I am whenever a band puts a bonus track in.
I think it's because I knew that the start of the album is so fucking good. Those first two tracks are really strong. So I think in the back of my mind I was thinking, I want to go back to the start of this and hear that again, because it's just so fucking strong from the off. So what are we thinking ratings for this new one from Row of Ashes? You had a ton of potential from these guys. I know this is only album 2, and it's a very solid album front to back. I had only just a couple of niggles for me, but I fully expect them to push the levels once again on the next one. I'd give this a good solid 4 out of 5. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Duncan?
I'm taking away that out of and putting a point in there. I'm giving it a 4.5.
Excellent.
It's like being on Countdown.
Kyle, what's your total score?
I'm going to give it, and this is bearing in mind that this is the soundtrack that we're playing Gordon Ramsay's head as he's being burned at the stake.
Are you about to give out your
5 out of 5?
All right, I thought you were about to drop your first 5 of the year, Kyle.
First 5 of the no, 4.5.
4.5. Nice. Row of Ashes, Bleaching Heat, which is just a fucking awesome name for an album. Drops on May 6th on Surviving Sounds. Let us know what you think. Check out some of the singles. Once the album drops, happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. I'll stick some links below to the band's Facebook, to the Bandcamp, so you can check it out. And that is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.